Hey there, nice to see you here. Do you happen to be looking for rare Pokemon? Well, you've come to the right place, as together on the channel we'll be tracking down the rarest Pokemon that Sword and Shield has to offer in the new expansion as they bring back some of your favorite Pokemon. Did you want a Comfey? How about some Klefkis? Well, those are easy and might not even be your favorites, but there are some Pokemon that are very rare to find in the wild that you'd really need to be on the hunt for to see. We've located the rarest Pokemon in the expansion and laid them out for you here to let you know where to find those lovely creatures. And like rekindling a relationship with the older generations, it may be a little bit tough, but we'll get them somehow. Let's look to find who are the 10 rarest new Pokemon in the entirety of the Isle of Armor and just how to get them. Welcome to the top 10 rarest Pokemon in the Sword and Shield expansion. Hope you enjoy. Number 10. Blissey. Starting off this list, we have a Pokemon that, although is rare, can be found almost everywhere on the Isle of Armor, if you're lucky. The happiness Pokemon, Blissey, can be found across 11 of the 16 new locations introduced in the DLC. And while because of that, you might be thinking, why is Blissey on this list? She can be found everywhere. Well, thank you for thinking so politely, but Blissey only has a 2% encounter rate in the wild when there's fog. You are able to catch a Chansey or Happiny as well to evolve it into a Blissey, but on its own, as a wild encounter, Blissey manages to challenge you if you'd like to go straight for that final stage evolution and come up as a joyful surprise when you see that big pink blob in the overworld. Which might give you a similar feeling to those old Gen 1 days of finding a Chansey in the Safari Zone without the fear of it running after the long grind of lightly tapping the D-pad. Final stage Pokemon encounters can be some of the most exciting too, so seeing Blissey feels like a rare treat. If finding her across the Isle of Armor proves to be difficult, you can always go to the soothing wetlands when there's fog, and you'll probably see one in the wild wandering about. Hard to miss her too with how big she is, carrying all that HP, which actually, at level 100, with max HP and Dynamaxing, goes all the way to 1,428 health points. To make things a little easier, you also have the option to try your luck on max raids, since you can spawn on every rare den of the Isle with a 5% encounter rate for 3, 4, and 5-star Pokemon. Coming in at number 9 from Sinnoh's Mount Coronet, we have Magnezone. It even came with a very interesting change, as its evolution method from Magneton into Magnezone is no longer finding a magnetic zone, but instead buying a Thunderstone. Game Freak probably didn't want to make a whole new special area for field-based evolutions, and instead gave us a DLC version of that in your pocket with a Thunderstone. Magnezone has a pretty rare encounter rate, since it can only be found during thunderstorms, wandering around 3 sections of the Isle of Armor: the Insular Sea, Challenge Beach, and Loop Lagoon. It might not be as difficult to find in the wild as you would expect, as these are special overworld encounters that you can trigger even though it's only during thunderstorms. But it's still a fun way of seeing a fully evolved Pokemon in the wild during specific circumstances to act as a reminder to the magnetic fields. Magnemite are pretty easy to find, and you're even able to encounter Magnetons too. But a wild encounter with a Magnezone and straight up catching it in this form brings a bit more difficulty with that encounter. Like Blissey, you can find Magnezone in max raid dens. There are only 4 max raid dens across the island that you can find Magnezone in. Those areas being the Fields of Honor, the Forest of Focus, Challenge Beach, and Honeycomb Sea, with a 15% encounter rate among the 5-star Pokemon. The 8th spot on this list goes to Volcarona, as it decided to mix in with the wildlife of the Isle of Armor to spread joy and love among its compatriot Pokemon from its black and white days of sitting in a castle. It was also in the lush jungle of Generation 7, however only when called by Larvesta, but it now returns again to run freely around in the overworld. Volcarona maintains that rare element it once had in its debut, only wandering across a few spots around the Isle, basking in that intense sun weather that hits the Challenge Beach and Insular Sea. It definitely needed to go on its own vacation in the nice sunlight after staying cooped up in those ruins, and then only being able to appear when its children called for it. As the other entries are on this list, Volcarona can only be found on 4 max raid dens across the DLC with a 15 to 20% encounter rate amongst the 4 and 5-star Pokemon. You could also evolve Larvesta, as it is also able to be caught, but finding a roaming Volcarona in a special overworld encounter during the intense sun and seeing a glimmer in its radiance is a thrilling experience to behold. Number 7. Are you tired of trading a Pokemon holding an item in order to get it to evolve? Are you tired of also having to search for that exact same item once more if you want another version of that Pokemon? Well, the Isle of Armor has the solution for you, as you can find a few of these trade evolution Pokemon in the wild without the need to find someone to trade with, or getting a second Switch. Kingdra is that rare Pokemon in number 7 that appears in the wild to help you skip past all the trading to evolve thanks to the Isle of Armor. It still evolves from Seadra when traded while holding a Dragon Scale, so they didn't change that evolution method like they did with Magnezone, but you can now save yourself the trouble by visiting the lovely Honeycomb Sea during a thunderstorm to meet a wandering Kingdra. Quick and simple, just like that, no friends needed. If you don't want to wait for a bunch of electric types to battle it out in the sky while it rains to summon up a thunderstorm, you also have the option of going to one of the 3 max raid dens that have a 15% to 20% chance of spawning Kingdra among the 5-star rated Pokemon. Rare in the wild, 5 stars in the den, this Pokemon knows how to trade. You all remember Kingdra, right? Well, Kingdra isn't the only Pokemon you get by trading an item on this list. Taking the number 6 spot of the rarest encounters in the Isle of Armor is a Pokemon that was brought to us by branching off as a new evolution and looking completely different from its family members. I'm talking about the green round plush looking Pokemon that is Politoed. Politoed's evolution line was introduced in the first part of the DLC, giving us a bunch of memorable water type Pokemon that started with the letter P. All of the Poly Pokemon in Politoed's evolution line are fairly easy to encounter in the Isle of Armor, but Politoed goes off on its own to change things up and make things a little bit more difficult. Politoed only wanders in one area around the soothing wetlands, and will only willingly choose to come out into the wild for you to encounter during rainstorms and thunderstorms. If you ever see rain or thunder on the wetlands, make sure to have a look around and save yourself from another trait evolution by trying to find the little green dot popping up. It's also worth noting that Politoed can be found in 3 max raid dens in the whole isle with a 15% encounter rate within the available 5-star Pokemon. Those 3 den locations only being in the Fields of Honor, the Soothing Wetlands, and the Courageous Cavern. Some of you might also feel this, but I'm just happy to see Politoed get a spot in a positive light as it deserves the attention and the extra effort to get one with how differently it stands out from the rest of its Pokepals. It also has the derpiest walk animation, so getting to see it follow you around like that is a joy in itself. Number 5. With this pick, we start to come across the Pokemon that can only be found in the wild using max raid dens. So if you want to catch this Pokemon, you'll have more of a challenge than just waiting for the weather to change around the Isle of Armor. Get your wishing pieces ready and go to one of these specific dens and get ready to fight Exploud. This Gen 3 Pokemon can only be found in 3 max raid dens around the Isle of Armor with a 15% chance to encounter it among 4-star Pokemon and a 20% chance amongst the 5-star Pokemon. This is probably one of the last Pokemon you were expecting to see here, considering that Exploud's pre-evolutions are extremely common in the Brawler's Cave and in various dens as well. But Exploud being an exclusive encounter in max raid dens is a quality that not too many Pokemon have here. The max raid dens also allow you to get a hidden ability, Scrappy Exploud, so it might be worth it to take on the challenge. Number 4. Hiding in the seas of the Isle of Armor, we have both Clawitzer and Dragagle, both of which are here tied in their rarity as they are one of the only version-exclusive counterpart Pokemon introduced in the DLC and match each other's exact encounter methods depending on whether you have Sword or Shield. Clawitzer lurks around 5 different areas and notably comes out with that low encounter rate of 1% while surfing. It can also be even longer than your normal 1% encounter rate too with all the Sharpedos chasing you. Dragagle shares that 1% encounter rate and is in the same areas as Clawitzer like typical version-exclusive rivals. Dragagle makes Pokemon Shield its home, while Clawitzer takes on Pokemon Sword. As with the past entries on this list, Clawitzer and Dragagle can be found in 4 max raid dens on the Isle of Armor with a 15% encounter rate between the 4-star Pokemon and a 15 to 20% chance for the 5-star Pokemon. The max raid battles also respect the version exclusive rules, so you have to find those raids in their respective versions. Their dens are found in the Workout Sea, Stepping Stone Sea, Insular Sea, and Honeycomb Sea. Number 3. This is another tie, but one that takes on number 3 and number 2 as they're different Pokemon with different locations and aren't version exclusive, but have the exact same rate of encounter. We're talking about the only Gigantamax forms on this list, with Gigantamax Venusaur and Gigantamax Blastoise, both at number 2.5. These 2 awesome new forms share a 5% encounter rate among 5-star Pokemon in only 2 rare max raid dens in the Isle of Armor. You'll probably have an easier time finding 3 max mushrooms and making a max soup and cooking that in real life for a Blastoise or Venusaur that you breed yourself. But to catch those specific Pokemon in a battle and encounter them straight raw in their undercooked forms has a bit more challenge to spawning them. You'll probably need to join forces with other players, since I don't think that the trainers in the game that you get on your team during your offline raids will be up for the task. These two great final starter Pokemon have very fitting locations for their dens as well. You can find Venusaur's Gigantamax form in the Max Raid dens located in the Trading Lowlands and the Forest of Focus. Both great names and mottos you need to capture it. While Gigantamax Blastoise can be found in dens within the Stepping Stone Sea and Workout Sea, which are also very fitting names as we need to take those stepping stones to work things out with Game Freak. The most elusive Pokemon to encounter in the Isle of Armor DLC may come as a little surprise with how special this Pokemon can be known, as number 1 is Lycanroc. But not just any Lycanroc, specifically the Dusk form. The Midday form and Midnight form can be seen wandering around the Isle and are difficult to miss, but to get the Dusk form Lycanroc, you need to take a few extra steps. Getting a Dusk form Lycanroc will require you to evolve a Rockruff with the ability Own Tempo between the times of 7 PM to 8 PM. If you do it a minute early, you'll get a Midday form, and if you do it a minute late, you'll get a Midnight form. Rockruff with Own Tempo is also a rare Pokemon, and receives its honorary place here in number 1 with its Dusk form evolution, as it stays close to it, being found with this ability only in the one den with Dusk form Lycanroc. This Lycanroc just has lower chances to encounter than Rockruff. To encounter a fully evolved Dusk form Lycanroc, there's one single max raid den located in the Loop Lagoon. Dusk form Lycanroc exclusively has a 5% encounter rate among the 5-star Pokemon that can appear in the common den. Luckily, its odds go up when it's a rare den, which brings another 5% encounter rate but among 4-star Pokemon, but also a 20% encounter rate among 5 stars when the beam of light is that right color. This does take quite a bit of time to grind out, so you can straight up encounter a fully evolved Dusk form Lycanroc, but just being able to encounter one can be as surprising as when it was released as a new form, and can even give you your own story after capturing this form to make your own Alolan-based championship adventure in Sword and Shield.